If you please rise, we'd like to start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Waters.
For a moment of silence, I'd like you to remember the 3 children and the adult that was killed in a fire, the lady that was hit in the face with a rock, and remember our first responders. They have a tough job, and they treat us good. I'd like you to also remember our town and all of its residents in your moment of silence. Amen.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 2. Decision and possible discussion, possible decision regarding the moving the order or deletion of an agenda items. Dr. Waters.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask for deletion of item number 9, item number 10, and item number 11.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Colgan.
I would agree with the number 10 item because today we had some discussions, and what will happen is I'm going to be looking for a public workshop that the public can participate in the town manager contract. That was my concern, is getting public participation. So that's been addressed, so I agree with number 10. Number 9, that's a hot topic, and I think it's a topic that we should at least discuss. Maybe we take no action, but I have some concerns, and I'd like to express those concerns, so I'd like to at least leave that on. And I'd like to leave number 11 on as well, so at least for some discussion where we can ask the town manager for an update and know what's going on. And maybe we take no action on that, but at least I'd like to get an update on it and see what happens. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
You can still remove it and ask during board comments to get an update on it from staff, if that's what you'd like.
Would that...
On 11, I'd be satisfied with that, but 9, I do not want to remove from the agenda.
Madam Chair, sorry about that. I'd like to vote on removing number 9 because I have a real problem with putting items on the agenda that the town doesn't have provenance over.
Okay, so let's take this one issue at a time. All those in favor of removing item 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
You got to speak.
Nay.
I'm sorry?
This is an action item. You took a vote before hearing public comment. Number 2 is designated an action item. Public comments allowed under your policy.
We just removed the item.
Any public comment actually is the discretion of the chair. So by rearranging or deletion of an item, it's to the board's pleasure whether or not we want the item on the agenda.
Upon hearing public comment, you may change your mind. You may not get the vote to remove it.
Well, we have a legal person.
There's some items he wants on there. I'm sure some of the public would like to discuss those items that have been brought up. Now, if the board sees public concern and interest in them, I think it's, as you being a representative of the people, you should at least willing to hear from them and especially represent the people.
Mr. Chair, can you get me the opinion on that? I believe it is within the realm of the board to withdraw an item without any public comment.
I think you can, if you're just removing it. If you're just removing it, then it's, you don't have, I don't think you need to have public comment on it.
Excuse me, it's an action item, you know how the RS is, right? Mr. Armstrong?
Mr. Chairman, it's your call.
The motion was passed to remove item 9, 4-1. On removing item number 10, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. On removing item number 11, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Why do we have a meeting for tonight?
Oh, it's to order.
Any more discussion on the order of the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to remove C and D from the consent agenda.
Oh, come on.
Yes, sir.
I was under the impression the only person that can take something off the agenda is the person that put it on it.
Actually, by a majority vote of the board, an item can be removed.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Calkin, you requested 13C and D, sir, be removed from the agenda?
No, I requested that we hear them.
Oh,
Remove from
okay.
the consent agenda.
I apologize. I was understanding you wanted to remove from the agenda, but you want them to be heard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I was under the same impression that. That's what I got.
We're removing, we're just getting in that removal thing.
All right.
You want it moved out of the consent agenda
That's
and put on
correct.
a regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion that, please.
I'd like to make a motion to remove C and D from the consent agenda, because there's some comments I'd like to make on those.
And move to the regular agenda.
And move to the regular agenda.
Thank you.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to remove B and C from the consent agenda and bring it forward to the agenda.
C and D, sir. You said B and C. C and D.
C and D. I'm sorry. That's the second page. Oh, yeah. C and D removed from the consent agenda and brought forward to the regular agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to our announcements. Ms. Endersby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agendas will be available if you want to have one emailed to you, and we apologize for not having a supply here that would be adequate for the number of people that attend. But from this time on, we will have more agendas available here, but also if you want to have an agenda ahead of time, just email the town office at pahrump.nv.org and you'll get on a mailing list that will make that agenda available to you ahead of time, as well as the newsletter and any other notices that go out. The other announcements are that Public Lands Advisory Board will meet on March 2nd at 7 p.m. in the Town Annex. Pahrump Tourism and Convention Council will meet on March 3rd at 8 a.m. in the Town Annex.
Point of privilege. There's a lot of talking going on. We're having trouble hearing. Please continue.
Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will meet on March 7th at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Annex. Pahrump Arena Advisory Board will meet on March 10th at 7 p.m. in the Town Annex. Pahrump Incorporation Advisory Board, the scheduled meeting on February 23rd has been canceled and has been moved to March 16th at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Annex. Pahrump Veterans Memorial Advisory Board will meet on March 17th at 6 p.m. in the Town Annex. And the Pahrump Tax Aids will be offering free tax service to qualified applicants in the Town Annex on Wednesday and Saturday. You can contact Fern Payne, and the phone number to contact her is 775-727-4258. She does ask for a scheduled an appointment to meet with her, but it is a free service that she does. There will be a business entitlement workshop, which will be held twice a day on February 24th, March 15th, and April 28th. One workshop will be held in the day, during the day at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then in the evening at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the Town Annex. And I wonder if we could just take a moment. Can we get a description of what that business entitlement workshop will entail? Is Mr.
Balakwe, could you come here, please?
Balakwe conducting that? It would be helpful if we could just get some information on that.
It appears he's grabbing some stuff out of his file. He'll be right here, ma'am.
Okay, daylight savings time begins March 13th, so that means we move our clocks ahead, right? You spring ahead? Spring ahead. Another announcement I'd like to just present is the Soroptimist International Pahrump Valley. There is a Women's History Month event at the library, and the IRS workshop for nonprofits. The Women's History Month at the library will start Saturday, March 5th, and it's from 1 p.m. This event is open to all who celebrate women and girls, and they will be recognizing the selection of books and brochures and movies that are dedicated to the issue of women and girls. The IRS workshop for any small and mid-sized 501c3 will be held in Las Vegas on Thursday, March 31st from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. There is a fee for that. It's $45. It's at the Palace Station, but it is something that might be helpful for mid-size, small and mid-size nonprofits. Also, there's a Children's Week at the Legislature, which is in April 18th and 22nd, and more information will come forward on that. There's a Chips for Veterans poker tournament also on, where's the date? Wednesday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Nugget. They'd like 100 seats, and it's for the benefiting the new Southern Nevada VA hospital. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Balakwe, the workshop, the business entitlement workshop?
Yes, the business entitlement workshop is the business entitlement workshop is a part of a grant that the town had received, or I should say another organization had applied for, and the town has picked up the opportunity to complete it when they didn't finish the classes. It was 8 classes to be held, 2 a day on 4 different occasions. And I'll be go ahead and conducting those classes this Thursday for the first time. We will be going over the business licensing process and what the state and federal requirements and the local requirements are for someone to go through to get a business license. We will then be talking about the county entitlement process, the necessary forms and what they mean and what you need to do and what you have to look after. The workshop is titled Permission versus Forgiveness. It's easier to get permission and do it right the first time than have to come back and beg for forgiveness later on. There's 6 components of the workshop, though, in the 2-hour period of time. The next thing we will talk about very lightly is the form of business that you take, whether you should be a sole proprietor partnership, LLC, or a corporation, whether that be a C corporation or S corporation, and we'll be providing handouts to the public and going into discussion to explain those things. They do affect how someone's taxes are related, how they raise money, and their liability on their business. The next part of the workshop we will talk about is the BEAR program, which is the Business Expansion, Attraction, and Retention, and why that is important to the community and individual businesses, and why it's important for them to participate. We will then go ahead and talk about a business plan and briefly go on that and have several handouts to give out, that it's important to revisit their business plan periodically as the economy changes and their business changes. The business plan isn't something you do once and then forget about it, and why that's important. We also will then go ahead and conclude with the last two things, is the grandfather clause. The county is about to pass a new ordinance in regard to grandfathering, and prior it was that if you had a business that was non-conforming after they did the zoning change and it was it didn't operate for 6 months, you lost that. The county has now considered extending that period of time, provided someone apply for a conditional use permit, and they'll hear that and consider expanding that business or letting a similar business continue to operate. I think this is a tremendous benefit for our community, and I want to get that out. And then I want to address companies that are grandfathered. I'm finding that a lot of them haven't gone ahead and done the due diligence to state that grandfathering. And what my concern is even though that's been in effect for about 3 or 4 years, here they come 5 years later and they want to sell that business, or they want to retire, whatever it may be, and find out that they never got their documentation. It would be much better to have them do it now and get it assured, and not to have to worry about it in 3 to 5 years from now. And we'll talk about that. The last thing we'll go into is probably one of the biggest challenges that most businesses have, and that's their financial management. And we'll be giving a brief, probably up to 20 minutes. It's going to be a bulk of the last part of the financial monitoring of the business. It's better to know where you are than not know where you are. And we'll provide a handout and information from there. And then we'll seek, if there's interest more, we'll hold another a workshop, free workshop, other than these 3 later on. We'll be doing it 3 different times, as you mentioned, Chairperson, on the 24th, the 15th, or Caroline, I should say, and the 28th. Does that answer your questions?
Is there a cost involved?
No, there are no costs, and there will be cookies and light cookies and some coffee and water at the workshop.
And do they need to pre-register?
It would be most beneficial if they did. At least let us know so we can make sure we have enough handouts. If not, we will have I have a 48-slide PowerPoint, and if they register it and provide us an email, we'll send them that PowerPoint. But there's quite a few handouts from various agencies. I'm hoping that the county will send someone over to participate. We have someone from RNDC that's possibly coming over to participate in these first 2 meetings, and I will have some other people hopefully in the further meetings.
So an email can be sent or to the town office, or a
Yes,
phone call?
they call the town office, extension 312, and just say, hey, I'm going to be there. That's great, you know what I mean, or there'll be 3 of us there. That way I make sure I have enough copies for them. Otherwise, I'll have to follow back up and get them copies at the later date. It'd be easier for them to have the copies there, so as we go through the PowerPoint presentation and the slides, they could make notes and go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Waters.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Balakwi, before you leave, can you give the phone number instead of just an extension if people do want to call and make reservations?
Yes, Mr. Waters, that's an excellent idea. It's 727-5107, and that's the town number, and extension 312 is Missy Arms, and mine is 302, and either one of those, just so we could get a count, and of course our email is, you know, my name is abalakwi@parumpnv.org, and that would be appreciated also.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
No,
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes. Good evening, I'm Paula Elefante, E-L-E-F-A-N-T-E. Get to spell it now. I haven't been to a town board meeting in over a year. I'd like to welcome the new town board members. Good luck, you're going to need it. And I'm here with an announcement. I'd like to share the Pahrump Powwow as a ongoing fundraising project. We are recycling ink cartridges, toner cartridges, that sort of thing. And these boxes, I turned it around so everybody else could see. These boxes there's a box at the Chamber of Commerce, there's a box at the library, there's a box at Pahrump Family Dental, there's a box at Spring Mountain Physicians Group, there's a box at Comstock Park Community Center, the Elks Lodge. Hopefully we'll have one at the Moose Lodge pretty soon. And so what we're asking, and we have the newspapers on board with us, the library's on board with us, and we're asking everyone in Pahrump to help us save the environment one cartridge at a time. And these won't, we'll keep that from going to the dump, and we can raise a little money so that we can go back to doing a contest powwow, which we didn't have this last year. It's quite costly. And so we just ask everybody's help. And if you get all your neighbors and your friends, and we'll come pick up cartridges. So, we'll get one of these in the senior center. So we appreciate it. We appreciate everybody's support and help, and we'll be glad to put on a better powwow and save the environment.
Did you say?
Oh, and we'll have a big tub at Earth Day.
Did you say you had one at the town offices?
No, I don't.
You want one?
Yes.
Put one there? Drop it by.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, advisory board reports. Anything from the board? Mr. Calkin.
I attended the public lands meeting, and basically what they've been talking about lately is establishing some sort of public attraction in the Johnny area north of Pahrump. They're kind of going along two different lines. One of them would be a viewing area to view the wild horses and burros, and also some other things out there like petroglyphs and so on. And also they're looking at maybe establishing some sort of western town or something. And the concern with the people that showed up to the meeting was that there's a lot of relics and things like that up there, and natural things, and they're concerned about them being damaged by the public. And there was a lot of discussion about how the public comes to things, some of the treasures we have in our valley, and they get destroyed, and are worried about it. If things become very common knowledge to the public, they'll get destroyed even worse than they already are. So then the suggestion was brought up that possibly they would entertain the idea of maybe recreating something. So you really wouldn't see what the real thing was, but you would see something like that. So they're trying to pursue some sort of attraction, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Waters.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk about the Pahrump Veterans Memorial Advisory Board. I'd like to invite as many people that would like to come out to see exactly what they're doing. They are looking at making the cemetery, the veterans area in the cemetery, something that people will come from all around just to see. They have already looked into bringing out 2 howitzers to recognize the Army as well as the Marine Corps. They're looking at bringing in an F-4 airplane to put out there as well, to recognize all the services for the veterans that fought in Vietnam, primarily because that's when the F-4 aircraft was used. But these are things that they're looking at, and if you have any other ideas about things to enhance the cemetery, the veterans portion of the cemetery, please come to the advisory board meeting so that they have more ideas of what you'd like to see. But it is something, that's the direction they're heading right now. They're looking at the columbariums, and we've got a lot of people that are interested in having remains in the veterans portion of the cemetery. So again, we encourage everyone to come out and at least talk to the members, see what they're doing, give them some direction if you think they're going in a wrong direction. But again, this is to enhance our community. That's what they're working for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, The Incorporation Advisory Board is an active board. I know there's been some thoughts that it's now inactive, but it is does have a quorum with a new member coming on and looking for other members to join the Incorporation Advisory Board. If you're interested in looking at the questions that are in front of the town as far as either incorporation, staying the same, changing in some way, certainly that's the place to come and join the effort in researching those questions and bringing them out to the public during public workshop and hearings. As the newly forming board, because they have lost some members, as many of you know, but with the remaining ones, they will be meeting on a Wednesday evening, and the next meeting will be March 16th at 6:30. So look for the application on the website, or come by or let me know, and I'll be glad to give you an application to be a part of that advisory board. The more that the citizens become involved in looking at those issues, the more it gets clarified for all of us. The other is the Youth Advisory Board, and we're looking for youth in the community ages 14 to 19 that would like to look at youth issues that our community faces here and help look at them in the light of what they see could be done, and that those applications are available also online or on the website. But if you have a group of youth and you would like me to come and meet with them and explain what it is that they could be doing as far as service learning, civic engagement, leadership training, all of that is important, because they're the ones that will be our future generation. They're the ones that will be sitting up here, and we'd like to give them that ability to learn what it is that's done. So let me know if I can be of any assistance to get the word out to our youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything further from the board? Anything from the chairs of advisory boards?
Hi, I'm George Sossman, and we have a special meeting of the advisory board on Friday, the 25th, 2 o'clock in the annex.
Which board?
The Nuclear Waste and Environmental Advisory Board, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's this Friday at 2?
That's this Friday at 2 o'clock.
Harvey gave a great comprehensive report. Just a correction on the announcements. Public Lands Advisory Board meets at 6:30.
Thank you.
All right. No further announcements. Item number 5, Town of Pahrump Economic Development Report. Is there any discussion on this report, or any questions on the report?
Could this be a good time to ask Mr. Kohlbarger to give us an update on Groponics?
As it states, we were waiting to see what was going on tonight with the town board, but Mr. Kashani has expressed interest to myself and Mr. Balakwi that he would like to meet with the county officials to possibly talk about waiving of the implied deed restriction. It will be the second meeting in March, which is the meeting that will be held here. And he's going forth with that, and he's doing his due diligence.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Alrighty, that brings us to item number 6, which is a presentation by Eileen Christensen, President of Beck Environmental, as to the status of the Bob Rood Center. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hit
Hello, Mr.
green
Chairman.
light, green light.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and town board members. My name is Eileen Christensen with Beck Environmental, and I'm here to report on the status of the Bob Rood project. I wanted to thank very much to Mrs. Parker and Mr. Kobarger for preparing the initial application to NDEP. I am a contractor to the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection as a subcontractor to Kleinfelder. And in that capacity, we assisted with the preparation of that application, but subsequent to what happened on December 28th, Mrs. Parker and I were attending a meeting over at the university when she notified me that the rain had done significant damage to the building. So Mr. Kobarger was able to allow Rachel Kreider from our office in Pahrump to come over and take some pictures. We forwarded those to NDEP and requested that they expedite the application on an emergency basis so that we could start work on assessing the building. Since then, the town has received approval for the Phase 1 process, and at that time we recommended to NDEP that they also allow expedited sampling, so we're hoping to also be able to conduct some asbestos sampling. We have to get authorization from EPA before we can start, but as soon as we receive that, we'll be starting on the project to do everything as quickly as possible. We did also recommend that a cost-benefit analysis be prepared to help the town evaluate whether or not it's better to refurbish the building or tear it down, but we won't know until we get additional information. We did ask Valley Electric and their assistance in doing an energy audit of the building so that we could take a look at what other aspects might be considered in the cost-benefit analysis. Once we have final approval from NDEP for whatever portions they can do, we had also approached the county, and we'll be approaching the county if NDEP does not allow the cost-benefit analysis to be performed with state funds. We'll approach the county's project manager from EPA because we have the opportunity for a technical assistance grant through EPA. So there are multiple facets to this program, and I just wanted to warn you that it is a fairly lengthy process, but I think it's good to spend the time needed to really evaluate what your options are so that you can go into this with to make an informed decision. Basically, that's where we're at right now, and I'd be happy to come back as soon as we get more information, but I wanted to thank you again for your help in pulling this together.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Christensen, you've given us somewhat of a timeline, but can you give us something more definitive as to when things are going to be moving along, when we might hear something like that?
Sure. It took us approximately 2 weeks to prepare the proposal back. So NDEP received their proposal the late part of January. Once they had given authorization to Mr. Kobarger, we were allowed to begin the proposal process. That's been submitted. They're in the review process, so I'm hoping to hear any day for the Phase 1 at least. Once we do that, it'll be another 2 weeks before we can submit something to EPA. In terms of a sampling plan, if they allow us to do the sampling plan, then we should be able to complete the Phase 1 within the next 2 months probably. It's a lengthy process because you have to wait for analytical results to come back from asbestos and lead-based paint because the building is fairly old. But these are things we need to consider. Lead-based paint definitely, and asbestos for potential problems. Once the report's completed, and if they allow us to do the cost-benefit analysis, that may take another month. This is ideal, so it may take longer than this, but so I anticipate we'd be moving hopefully in March, April. Okay?
Yeah.
Ms. Parker.
I guess would I be accurate in summing this up in that because the town has limited funds, we're pursuing grants in a number of areas, and so we have to operate on the schedule of the grant people rather than on a schedule that we would prefer?
We're trying to expedite as much as possible. Like I said, the pictures helped very much to promote the idea of getting an emergency process going. So it expedited the grant application by at least a month, maybe two.
That's good. But again, we're depending on somebody else's schedule, not our own. Am I accurate in saying this?
Very much so, yes.
Thank you very much.
I was going to ask about the timelines also, but thank you very much. I know the community is very concerned about getting the community center back for use, so that's appreciated that your time, that you're moving it ahead and getting some information back. When can we expect to hear from you in particular again? Do you have an idea when you can come back and visit us?
Well, I'm sure you all understand how much I really love doing public speaking, so I'll try to forward information as it comes forward to Mr. Kobarger, and as soon as, based on that information, anytime you'd like me to come back, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much. Anything,
Thank you.
Mr. Colton?
Well, I guess I could sum it up by saying if this building was in our backyard, it probably would have been fixed by now. But because it's a public building, we have a tremendous amount of government bureaucracy to deal with, and I hope the public understands that, and that's why it's taken so long.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
That brings us to item number 7, a presentation by Lorinda Wickman, Nye County Commissioner, on the protection of roadways pertaining to RS 2477, roads within Nye County.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay if I sat over here so that I can see the group that I'm presenting to?
Please.
Please? Okay. I believe most of the town board already knows what this project is about. At least a couple of you do. But this is an explanation for anyone who's here and wants to know what we're doing. About a year ago, I secured funding from the commission and started a program to inventory and identify our minor county roads throughout the whole county. This is a process that was started several times, false starts over the years. The most famous one was started by Dick Carver back in '94, and for that he got his picture on the cover of Time magazine, but we still don't have our roads. So a minor county road, so that everybody understands, is normally identified by a 2-track. Everybody here knows what a 2-track is. No? Okay. If you're out wandering around in the valley and you see a dirt road that has a mound in the middle of the road where grass sometimes grows, we call that a 2-track. What that means is that road is traditionally maintained by use. Many of those roads go back to the late 1800s, and the jurisdiction should stay with the county in order for us to keep those roads open to the public. I'm sure that probably many people here are aware that when the forest came in and did their, the Forest Service was tasked with doing their travel management plan back in 2008. When they brought that plan forward, the maps that they produced to go with their environmental assessment were lacking about 3,000 of those roads, one of which was my driveway, which started a little battle and probably got me in this seat that I'm in right now. But those roads have been used by the public. They are historical roads that belong to the public for a federal land management group to come in and decide that they are going to close roads. There is a process by state law with which they have to do that. Everybody here also knows that in reality, they do what they want and they dictate to the state dictates to us. You know how that works. So what we're trying to do is use the laws, use the historical documentation, use top-of-the-line technology to provide them with everything they need to keep those roads included on those plans. The BLM is now in the process of doing their resource management plan, and we want to have our inventory prepared and ready for that so that it is, so that we don't have to ask them to include it later. Now, the reason I'm here tonight is I have gone to every town board in the entire county and explained the process, because number one, having a road put on our county minor road inventory does not mean that it is going to be maintained. It specifically means that it is maintained by use and by use only. So we are not adding any roads to the maintained road system. Okay? The other reason that I'm here is because I wanted to let you know that our contractor is moving south. You may see her around town. You may see her out on BLM land or out wandering around, and I wanted you to know who she is and what she's doing. She's not poking into your yards. She is trying to hang on to our roads for us and keep the BLM and the Forest Service in a position where they have to recognize our roads. Rebecca Elkins is the one that you'll find out on the roads. If you'd stand for just a minute, Rebecca, wave at everybody. Okay, so if you see that girl out there on a road with a flat tire, please don't pass her up. And I will, if with the board's indulgence, are there any questions about the program?
Actually, I'd like to start out with a question myself.
Well, there you go.
When you're mapping these roads, how are they mapped? Are they just GPS from start to finish? And I mean, how are they identified on a map?
They are identified first by using USGS, which is the industry standard. Everybody has decided that USGS mapping is what we use. So if someone were to call Rebecca and say, I have a road out here, Spanish Trails, and I think that it existed prior to 1976 when the BLM was put in charge of management on that land, and we would like to protect that, probably the first thing that she would do, and I'll let you yell at me if I get out of line, the first thing that she would do is compare that with a USGS map. And if the road is identifiable on the USGS, then she would start doing her research and find out how far back that she can take the historical documentation. Once that is done, she goes out with Trimble survey equipment and actually surveys in the road. The start, the ending point, the center line, the width of the road, the condition of the road, any structures, fences, standpipes, anything along that road, she will document that will help us prove the historical use of that road. So it is done with survey technology. It is top-of-the-line technology. It fits seamlessly into Nye County's GIS administration software package. It also fits seamlessly in with Nevada Department of Transportation. In order to, right now we are spending a lot of money to do this because it has to hit the county, one road has to hit the county commission. There are no less than 6 documents prepared. Per road. It hits the county commission. County commissioners do a resolution. We put on an agenda request for a public hearing for the road department, for the road commission. The road commissioners hear the public hearing. The road commissioners then pass a resolution. So I have drafted a bill draft request, which is now in a Senate bill format. Senate Bill 049 is before legislature to change that. And all they have to do is just put in both organizations, you know, the Board of County Commissioners and the Road Commission, and they'd cut all of that in half. The other thing I've asked them for is to identify the state validation process. State validation process is something that a court will look for. If this is challenged and taken into a court for adjudication, the judges look for the state validation process, and currently Nevada does not have a state validation process of a county claim to a right-of-way. So I've asked them to identify the process of once a year we give our roads, our road mapping to NDOT in order to, for them to do the calculations to get our fuel tax back into the county. We're just asking them to accept that lower layer of minor county roads which do not affect the tax base. And then I'm asking them to say, once NDOT has accepted it, that that is the state validation process by definition. I'm working on that as of 4 o'clock today. I have to go back to NDOT and explain it again.
Where can you get the, what are the most current maps? I mean, because the last ones that I purchased were actually stamped 1986.
Is this for Forest Service you're asking me about, or BLM?
The USGS.
Those are online now. Most of those are online. And you will also see the progress of this particular project if you access the Nye County website. On the home page, there's a far bottom right-hand corner, if I'm not mistaken. There's a spot in there for the GIS. If you access that, you can see the roads as they are going on our maps as it's happening, as they work through the system and get added to the maps. It's pretty impressive. It's fun to play with. Even if you're really not interested in looking at the roads, it's kind of fun to go in and play with that.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Ms. Sanderson?
Yes, Mrs. Wickman, we have an advisory board, Public Lands Advisory Board. Mr. Evans is here. He's the chair of it. They're very knowledgeable about the roads in the Pahrump Valley, have probably been on every road. Somebody in that advisory board's been on every road out there, I would imagine. So I would like to, just not wanting to offer your services, Mr. Evans, but if you would like to at least get in touch with,
Rebecca Elkins.
You know, I think it might help Rebecca move around the county.
And that was the other reason I was here. Is anyone who has any concerns about roads in there? Yes, sir.
Yes, can I ask you a question? Could you give us like a
Is it?
Identify yourself.
Please come up to the microphone.
My name's Louis DeCanio. I'm a Pahrump resident here, and I'd just like to ask you a brief question. Could you just give us an update on the Blag Road fiasco? A lot of us people don't know what's going on. It's been like this for a long time, and we don't know if it's affecting our groundwater. We're really not getting no updates, and we're kind of in the dark. And being that you're part of the road or whatever, you know, maybe you have some information that you could help us with.
And actually, Mr. DeCanio, I'd love to give you an update on that. However, you know probably just about as much about that road as I do.
You see, I live over there, okay? And
I know you know more about it than I do.
Okay, I know, but see, I don't know what's in my groundwater, see, because I've got well and septic. I don't know what I'm drinking, okay? I don't want to be drinking something that's coming out of that prison or that farm over there. Now, you people have a lot more information than we do. And believe me, I mean, just let us know what's going on a little bit. Keeping us in the dark is not good for any of us.
Nobody's trying to keep you in the dark, Mr. DeCanio. If you would call Dave Fanning at his office during work hours, he can give you an update on what's going on. I could sit here and talk about it for 30 minutes and you wouldn't get any information because I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 8, discussion possible decision on approving resolution 2011-02, a resolution amending the resolution 2009-02, and reestablishing a policy and guidelines for rules and procedures at Pahrump town board meetings.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Calkin.
Well, I was a little disappointed about how we handled open public comment, because I think open means just that. I don't think we should be telling people what they can and can't say. But overall, I think it turned out a lot better than what it used to be, so I'd like to make a motion to approve it as is, as written. So I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2011-02. A resolution amending Resolution 2009-02 and reestablishing a policy and guidelines for rules of procedure at Pahrump Town Board meetings.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Waters.
Before there's a second, I would like to make a comment because there's some recommended changes that I have for it.
Quite frankly, there's a couple that I have myself.
Well, then I withdraw my motion. I thought you heard this enough already.
When we submitted all of this, there were some items that were brought to my attention, and in the fourth bullet point, it talks about a member being absent from the meeting. There will come a time, and I'm guaranteeing this, that there will be an item on the agenda when a board member will have to refute himself, and at that time, it may be considered advisable for that member to actually physically leave the room.
Is that page 1, sir?
Let me get back to it.
Just for the record.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes?
Under Robert's rules, which this board operates under, you need a motion and a second in order to open discussion on an item.
That's not true.
The board is actually discussing this before we make a motion as to where we're going to go with it.
I don't believe Robert's rules allows for that.
It does.
Well, our agenda and our rules supersede Robert's rules. The way that our rules are written is our rules come first and then we fall back onto Robert's rules. So if the board wishes to discuss an item before it makes a motion, it's within our guidelines to do so.
Robert's rules doesn't allow for it.
So again, sir, is that on page 1?
Give me a second.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, this board in the past had made motion to operate under the rules, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. Now, that doesn't mean that in my opinion, doesn't mean that the board's rules supersede Robert's rules. If you're going to operate under a set of rules, then operate under them. And I can't see the problem making the motion and seconding it, whatever it is, and then opening up the floor for discussion. This is proper procedure. And I just feel that if you're going to conduct a meeting, it should be done in a proper manner. And that's the reason I made the point of order. Thank you.
I appreciate your point of order. But again, at the beginning of these guidelines, the town policy and guidelines for rules of procedure at town board meetings, except as may be provided by these rules or by law. Questions of order and methods of organization and conducting of business of the town board shall be governed by the rules contained in the current edition, newly revised hereafter. Legal counsel to the board or another person so designated will serve as the board's parliamentarian and advise the chair regarding the rules of procedure. Yes, the issue that I have is on page 1 with the 4th bullet point, where it says during a board meeting, board members should remain in the assembly at all times unless an emergency or an illness shall occur. And as I stated, when an issue comes up where a board member needs to refute himself and not vote, it would be advisable for that member to actually physically get up and leave the room so that there could be no issues regarding gesturing, eye rolling, head nods, movement of any kind. I would like to see this bullet point removed.
Let me speak.
I'll agree with you on that. I mean, maybe the smokers want to go outside, get some fresh air. I think you're right on that, Mike, and I support you on it.
Well, I might get a stomachache and need to find a bathroom, so, you know, I go along with it, too.
Mr. Campbell.
I think you could also leave this in and say, you could put an exception in there. If a board member needs to recuse himself on an item, you could be accepted from this and remove yourself. Other than that, other things you're talking about would be handled on normal breaks. But I think you could leave it in and put exceptional language in there in the case of a recusal, if you'd rather do that also.
That's easier.
I could live with that amendment.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a lot of times, what's the point of saying you can't do this or you can't do that if there isn't a penalty involved? So let's say you didn't do this, so what? So, I don't even see the relevance of, if you wanted to get rid of the whole thing, that works for me. Because it's just common sense. You're at a meeting, you should participate, and I don't think anybody's going to be leaving unless they have a really good reason, so.
Okay. So we will,
I added the wording, if you may, that at all times unless an emergency, illness, and/or a member needs to recuse themselves should occur.
I don't see any issue with the way that staff has directed amending that. Is there any further comment from the board?
I'm okay.
Then we will have that bullet point amended as such. The only other changes I had were grammatical as far as missing words, such as under announcements. It says regarding things happening in the community. It's missing the word "end," and that's under announcements. That's next to the last page.
Next to last, page 3. How did that go?
Where did you want to?
Oh, I got it. On the portion.
And basically, that was the only changes I needed to have made before voting on this. Was there any other changes from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Waters.
Yes, on page 4, under point of order, second line, the chair has the duty. It should be capitalized for capital chair or chairman, one or the other. Since we use that throughout, we should be consistent. And the last bullet, first line, second sentence, instead the chair, same thing. The next item I have is under item 5. The term is used 3 times, the term "you." Second line, when the motion is pending, you may attack. Instead of using "you," we've changed the terms within the document to say presenter or
commenter.
Then we should go ahead and change that and not use the term "you." It's in 3 different places there.
I made those changes for you, sir. I've got, while a motion is pending, a commenter may attack the idea or likely result of a proposal in strong terms, but the commenter must avoid personal attacks on person. The second bullet, second line, it starts off instead of "you," the commenter may be asked by the chairman to leave the podium.
Very good. Those are the changes I saw.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, under public comment, item number 2, the third bullet, and I would like to change it where it says on the second line, chairman may prohibit comments. I think we should show a little bit of willingness to be a little open-minded instead of closed-minded to the things going on in our community.
You voted on that last time, 4-1.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Which page? Page 2 under.
Page 2, the third bullet down under open public comment. So
public comment may address.
So it would read, public comment may address any subject, and it says may already within the authority of the board. The chairman shall is what it says now. I'd like to see it say the chairman may prohibit comments.
Yeah, that was voted on at the last time, and it was may was in there, and it was removed may and shall was put in.
It was a 4-1 vote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did have a lot of discussion on that, and we did vote on that particular item. and we left it as shall.
You know, I'm a guy that says what I feel, and so I'm going to say what I feel now. I'm seeing a pattern of an unwillingness to work with the public. I wanted to discuss the prison thing, and this board didn't want to discuss that, claiming that it didn't have jurisdiction over it. That's to be determined, and now we see again that we don't want to talk about things going on in our community. We are charged in part with the health, welfare, and safety of the public, and I don't think having a closed mind is a good thing in that regard. So.
I'm willing to listen or to talk about any subject, and I do, but I don't feel that every subject is appropriate at a town board meeting. You want to talk about prisons, you want to talk about other things that don't fall within the province of the town, I'm willing to listen. But I'm not willing to subject the rest of the board and the audience to something that doesn't affect them.
All I'm asking for is the chairman to have the say-so, yes or no. It's not that it'll certainly be a certain way. It's up to the chairman. That's all I'm asking. So. All I got to say on it.
Okay. And because it was voted 4-1, I'm sorry, but it will remain shall. Any other changes from the board? So I will entertain a motion to accept this document with the revisions as stated by staff.
I so move.
Mike can't make a motion. He's the
I
chairman.
so move.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board? And open it up to public discussion.
My name's Andrew Alberti, and I'm a citizen of Pahrump. And if 15 minutes is all that's allowed for public comment on a hot issue, you may be missing something that you need to hear. And when it says shall, you have no choice. This is an area where I believe you should have some choice. And when you figure 15 minutes at 3 minutes per person per public comment, that's 5 people. If you have a night when you've got 100 people or 150 people in this audience, and 20 of them want to comment on what you're doing, you have no option. And I really think you should reconsider the word shall.
Mr. Alberti, exactly what bullet point are you talking about?
I'm talking about the one that says that you shall limit it to 15 minutes.
I see that as organized groups, not individual public comment. Because in public comment number 2, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Maybe you might clarify what you mean by organized groups. As an example, the Night Gold Seekers is an organized group with 235 dues-paying members. If they were to show up here, they would be an organized group. And yet, they may have some very valid issues because some of the things that are being considered by this town are creating an environment up where they have a prospecting claim in Johnny, which might affect what you're doing. And they may have other issues that they wanted to address that affects their organization. So when you start limiting them, you start limiting their rights to free speech, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address that.
Mr. Kaufman.
Under general policy of board regarding public participation, one of the bullets says, chairman shall have discretion in setting all time limits. And so there's nothing etched in stone here, is my point. So it'll be up to the chairman to listen and do whatever, and I'm sure something important is going on. He's not going to tell people to stop.
And I'd like
She,
to
whoever
address,
needs the time.
I'd like to address one other thing. Your Resolution 2011-02, Pahrump Town Board, page 4, item 4, states, point of order is used according to Robert's Rules of Order, and I'm going to skip right to it. The chair has the duty of making sure the rules are followed. But it doesn't say which rules. I'd like you to clarify that if you would.
I second that. By our resolution, the rules set forth by the town board are the first set of rules we follow. The second set of rules we follow would be those of Robert's Rules of Order.
It doesn't indicate in here what rules we're talking about. It's not specific.
Mr. Chairman,
And-
I believe it does, if I may just.
Do you? Okay.
add. It does say that in the second paragraph, therefore be it resolved that the town policy and guidelines for rules of procedure are provided by these rules or by
I'm
law.
sorry, where are you looking?
It's the second, in the very first page, second paragraph there. Therefore be it resolved. And it states that the town board meetings, except as may be provided by these rules or by law, question of order, the methods of organization, and the conduct of business shall be governed by the rules contained in the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. Legal counsel to the board or another person so designated will help be the parliamentarian and help the chair regarding those rules of procedure. So we do follow NRS, our laws, and we follow the town board policies and Robert's rules, and they're stipulated there.
In that sequence.
It probably depends.
I know what NRSs would have to be followed first. I can understand that. My question is, it's town policies before Robert's Rules or after?
Before.
Okay, thank you.
And may I also, Mr. Alberti, just say, as far as organized groups, I personally think it's great if organized groups look at issues, talk about it within their membership, deliberate on it, come to some ideas within that group as to how they want it presented, and come to a town board meeting and as a group consensus, present it, have a number, up to whatever time they have available to present their viewpoints on that issue. It just broadens the discussion on it if it's held in community organizations. So I would certainly see that as a positive, but for that group to come with 400 and some members, and I know the Gold Seekers have that many members, and open it to the floor for each member to speak when they've deliberated on it already. It just seems, as they've done it at our Public Lands Advisory Board, they just designated a speaker who spoke for the group.
I guess my point really comes down to, if all the discussion was not completed within the 15 minutes, it would have to be tabled to another meeting so they could continue if that was the decision of the board and of the members who wanted to speak.
Actually, Mr. Alberti, I think your copy is flawed because the one that I have, everywhere that I look at it, it says may.
There's only one shall.
Well, where is the shall coming from? I looked for it and I didn't see it either.
The shall is
I'm sorry, I didn't do the timer.
on open public comment, and that's for
Which item is that?
number
okay.
3 under open public comment.
Okay, that's the
We
only
have a
place
point
where
of
the
order.
shall is. As Mr. Stevens used to say, take your hands off that timer.
That's a foot on the pedal. What if you hit start?
Okay. I thought that would stop.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take a lot of time on it, I just wanted to comment.
The only two spots where I see shall is the chairman shall have the discretion in setting all times, and the chair shall have the discretion to reopen general public. That's the only two shalls I see. All the rest are mays.
Be nice if they were all May. Okay, I'm done, thank you.
Yeah, my name's Sam Jones, Pahrump resident, 22 years. Sounds to me like this board is trying to take away one of our amendments to the Constitution. Like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to assemble, and you're not going to do it, the bottom line. And what you've been doing, Mr. Culkin said something about changing something, and you immediately said that was voted on. We're going to go on and vote on the next thing. Well, if you've already voted on it and said you was going to do it, then what are you doing the second time around? If you already voted on it and said, but you're trying to shut us, the citizens, up, it's not going to work. We put you into office, we can damn well put you out of office, same way we put you in. So beware. Do not try and take our constitutional rights away.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Waters.
There was one other item, Chair, on that paragraph, the therefore it be resolved, that last line. I just wonder if Mr. Kohlberger caught that and made that change from chair with the little c to chairman.
There's 3 of them, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, there was 3 of them. I caught them, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Stevens.
Good evening. Oh, wait a minute. Dave Stevens. Dave Stevens, Pahrump taxpayer. I don't know anything about them rules you got there. I believe in the freedom of speech. And that's the one I live by. I don't care what kind of rules you people got. You're there to sandbag us people down here. I'm not kidding anybody in this place. You don't even like it when I come around here.
I do.
I speak the truth. And I can say anything I want here as long as it pertains to subject and it's legal. And if I don't, I will sue this town board. You better believe it, or anybody else around this town. That's my freedom of speech, and I believe in that. Harley come up with something, I wanted to hear that. I come down there to fire Kohlberger and that lawyer. I couldn't say nothing. Thank you very much.
All right, seeing nobody else getting up for public comment on this matter, we have a motion to accept the document with the changes as directed by staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. That brings us to item 12. Discussion possible decision on approving to transfer ambulance fund delinquent accounts for October through December 2010 for further collection and related accounting adjustments.
This is basically a housekeeping item that we do quarterly. So I'll just go ahead and make a motion to approve the transfer of ambulance fund.
Turn your mic on, please.
To approve ambulance fund delinquent accounts for October through December 2010 for further collection and related accounting adjustments.
Second.
We have a first and a second on approving this. Is there any discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Colton.
Many times in the past I've spoken about this item, and I feel it's an injustice to hound people that already live in poverty. I was looking at some of the figures here, and I see that accounts are turned over to collection, and yet not that much is collected, it seems like. I believe that this board should put together a form that somebody fills out that is unable to pay, and we determine some sort of figure that if they live in a financial arena of a certain amount of money that we're not going to go around hounding them. They're not going to pay the bill, and all you're doing is hounding these poor people that are poor enough and have to suffer the indignity of being poor, and I just don't think it's right.
I've got two things, if I may, to say to that. One, if you'll notice, there is a hardship column there. Second of all, the town has always been willing to work with people. If you can pay us $5 a week forever, if you want, we'll work with you. But the point is that the bad debts were over, for 1 quarter, were over $350,000, and that's money that if it isn't being paid, you people have to make up the difference in higher ambulance rates for you, because somebody has to pay.
Well, my argument is that these people aren't paying. You know, and you say $5 a month. It costs us more in accounting fees than the $5. There has to be a line drawn where we're wasting our time and it's costing us money, and we're making these people suffer an indignity.
It's turned over to collection agencies. They collect what they can. But if we were not to pursue these, the percentage of people not paying, I think it's over a third now. If word got out that the town, oh, you don't have to pay your ambulance bill because they aren't going to chase you, you're going to find 2/3 of the people don't pay.
But that's not what I said. What I said was they would fill out a form disclosing their financial status.
Who's going to make those decisions? Are you? I'm not qualified to decide whether somebody is in dire financial.
The decision to make is what the form says, and at what monetary level we waive having to pay the bill.
That's what I said.
So it's a matter of accounting, and we haven't.
Who's going to decide what that level is?
Well, we can put it on the agenda.
Do you feel qualified?
This sounds to me like it would be a fine item to put on a future agenda.
Meanwhile, we've got to take care of the
draft of a form to be filled out by the indigent or those that are completely unable to pay.
But by the way, you'll notice that one of the columns there is indigent as well as hardship.
How do you determine that? Because they just simply didn't pay, right?
I believe the chairman's trying to make a point.
Yes, he is. That today isn't the time to discuss this. We just simply need to perform the accounting motion of transferring them into delinquent accounts.
Okay, I'll make this short.
If you would like to look into
that's what I was going to say.
The fine details of this, I would advise you to get with staff or actually, that's what you need to do. You need to contact staff and get into the nitty-gritty on exactly how these numbers are calculated and how they determine who's a bad debt, who's a write-off, and whether or not there's anything this board can do. But
as
it was pointed out, this basically is just a housekeeping item for us until such documents come before us. So right now, we do have a motion on the floor to approve this write-off. Is that acceptable?
Tonight it is, yes. But in the future, I will put something on the agenda to
Any further questions from the board?
I just have a comment. It is a general business practice to do collections and to take care of bad debt. I think we would not be responsible in our duties, and staff would neither be responsible, and our auditors would look at our practice as not doing what it is that we need to do, which is follow general practices.
And I do. I encourage you to take it up with staff. Is there any public comment on this?
My name's Andrew Alberti, resident of Pahrump. I know we budget, I think, around $4 million for the fire and rescue service as part of the budget. And I know that we as citizens are concerned about the safety and welfare of our other citizens. What I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is we're already paying all of the personnel in fire and rescue. We already own all the equipment, and we already pay for all the servicing of it. So now we're turning around and we're billing everyone that needs this emergency service, and it doesn't show, the additional monies, I don't think, ever show up as a budgetary item. So if we're paying everyone already, it's like being in the military. We're already paying all of the military, we're already spending all the gas, and we have all the equipment. And I just don't understand why we want to go back and rebuild. And I was looking at some of the things I've seen in the paper lately, where the fire department wants to charge for different people who show up. They're already being paid, is my understanding. So I'm not quite clear what we're doing here in wanting to collect more monies over and above what we're already paying.
Okay.
Every one of these people are taxpayers.
I can explain it.
Okay.
The fire department.
We have a
He
call
has a
for
point of order.
You go through the head, the chair, if you want to talk.
Do you want me to answer that?
Just say, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
The fire department is really divided into two sections. One is firefighting, and the other is the ambulance service. And their time is billed according to how their day goes, whether they're taking care of fire matters or ambulance matters. And they're funded two different ways. The fire department is funded totally with tax dollars. Fire departments don't charge for putting out your fire. It's a loss leader. We don't expect to make any money on that. The ambulance is paid by the people that use it. It's called an enterprise fund. And the money that we collect from the patrons who use the ambulance service goes into the enterprise fund, and the enterprise fund is what pays for the salaries, pays for the supplies, it pays for the ambulances. All of these items are paid for separately from the fire department. Now, I know that either Chief Lewis or Mr. Sullivan could probably explain it better, but in a nutshell, you're talking about apples here and oranges there. Now, the fact that the staff is cross-trained and they can move from one side to the other means we don't have to have as many as employees, but they are paid separately. And when we do our budget, we will have separate funds for the fire and the enterprise fund. And when we did the audit, I think it was the last meeting, it was laid out in that audit separately. Fire is separate from the ambulance enterprise fund.
No, I did the clock was at 1 minute and 35 seconds when I relinquished some time to you. I'd like to finish my 1 minute and 35 seconds, if that's all right. If we're going to bill, in my opinion, if we're going to bill the person using the service, why don't we just hire a commercially operated service and do away with the government employees that are hired by the town?
Mr. Chairman, I think in part what Mr. Alberti is trying to get across is that we pay taxes and he thinks that the service should be provided for free. What I'm trying to project here is that insurance companies are willing to reimburse sometimes, and obviously by having more money given back to us, we can provide a higher standard of care when we respond to something. My objection simply is that when people can't afford to pay, we shouldn't be hounding them. But like I said, if we can get money from an insurance company back, then that would be great. It'd be nice to say, well, we could save people's insurance premiums being a little bit lower if we didn't go after the insurance company, but that'd just be Pahrump doing it, while the whole rest of the world is asking insurance companies to reimburse. And so we can't be that novel about it, but we should be a little more caring about the poor people. But.
And I do understand that some cities are taking this approach, but it seems to me that once you go to the insurance companies, the rates go up at the insurance companies. So no matter how you cut it, we're biting the bullet at both ends. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bond, Will Bond. I'm a Pahrump resident. Yes. Now it's better. Let me start over again. My name is Bond, Will Bond. I'm a Pahrump resident, and a lot of other places in the United States, there's a deal with the phone companies where you can pay $5 a month, and that covers all of your emergency services that you're entitled to. There's other parts of the nation that even for the fire department, you have to pay the fire department on a monthly basis, or your house can burn to the ground and they stand there to watch it to protect the neighbors. I think that the staff discussions that Harley's going to get involved in, I think you should take a look at this. I realize you have to collect your debt. You know, that's good business practice. But look at a way to offer the people of Pahrump an alternative, insurance for that ambulance service. We had that in the last town we lived in, and it was just $5 added to the phone bill. All emergency services were covered. I would strongly suggest that Pahrump look at something similar to that. Thank you.
Dave Stevens, taxpayer, citizen here. There's nobody else. I stick up for that fire department as fast as anybody in this town. I like the fire department. I like them all. Fire chief too. But when I moved to this town, I busted my back or almost broke it. Ended up being a crippled. And they didn't have a hospital here then. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I get a little excited. The only reason I come back, I had to get my coat. But anyway, is that better?
Yes.
Well, thank you. I wrote the senators, I wrote the governor, I wrote the president, but you couldn't. I had my Social Security. They wouldn't pay it because there was no hospital or rest home. And I put up a pretty good fight. Finally, I wore it down. They said pay them $5 a month. And I paid them $5 a month around here for almost a year, cash. I didn't give them no check. I wanted to make it just as tough as I could for them. So this goes on for a while. Finally, I have to call them up so I can go down and pay the $5. I think they were going to let me off the hook. They felt sorry for me. But in the meantime, I called the union and they paid my ambulance bill. I put the money in the bank and I drawed interest on it, tax-free bonds, of course. And I told one of these stool pigeons what I'd done. They went up and told them. Well, them ladies were so nice in there, I went up and paid them. But if I hadn't belonged to the union, I wouldn't have never paid them. They couldn't have got it out of me. Could you answer a question? How could a man making on welfare or whatever with a half a dozen or a dozen crumb crushers pay an ambulance bill? A poor man can't do it. It's impossible. He couldn't even pay him $1 a month. So I'm not trying to say you shouldn't collect the money, but they should have discretion here. Somebody knows if somebody's got a bunch of kids out there and they're going hungry. They've been going hungry here, the schools and all that. They should take that into consideration. I owed another bill, the doctor over there, that hospital bill, and I told him I was going to put my dog on him. He's one of them mean dogs. I said, I have to keep him chained up all the time. I said, he'll eat their legs off, clear up their kneecaps. Hey, well, I'm going to call the sheriff on you, and all that kind of stuff. But I had them scared, I think. Anyway, I went down and paid that one too, but they were trying to collect it after I'd been there 20 days. You got your foot on that thing up there? Yeah, okay, I'm finished.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, Sam Jones, 22-year resident. You know, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the last town board meeting, might have been the other one before that, where they had an audit of the town. And they said that the ambulance fund and the fire fund was $1 million apiece. You know, now that tells me they're making money. They're making big money. So somebody's double dipping here somewhere down the line. And I, for one, I've been an honest person all my life, tried to be my whole life. And I just don't understand how Mr. Culkin knows very well fires don't get put out like they used to. When we had an all-volunteer fire department, fires got put out, people didn't lose their homes. Now that we got a union fire department and they're making $200,000 plus a year per person, they're not putting out fires, they're letting them burn. So all I'm saying is...
Point of order, we really need to stay on subject, which is the debt. If
That's what I'm on, ma'am. That's what I'm talking about is the debt. Now you want to change that clock back and give me my other 30 seconds back? And not interrupt me because I don't interrupt you. Thank you. Anyhow, my point being is the last meeting you said there was over $2 million. I'll take what they said. I've got it on video if you want to see it. So all I'm saying is I believe in people paying their debts, but you don't double dip. There's people in this valley that can't work, that's disabled. There's people in this valley that don't even have homes. If you drive up the mountain and look, there's people staying out in the desert in their cars, in travel trailers, and you're wanting to make an approval for this ambulance fund. Keep the $2 million. Do away with this. That's all I got to say.
Good evening, Board. Bob Irving. I just want to ask a question. You know, I've been here for almost 8 years now, and I probably could go and ask the chief and have no problem getting it. But I'd like to know what the charges are for these people from picking them up and taking them to the hospital here, and then having to go in from the hospital to Las Vegas, and also what the cost for the airlift people. You know, I came from an area where we had the same situation, and the thing about it is our taxes paid for our people to go into the hospital. If you lived in our community, the taxes that we paid out for fire and for emergency services, the EMS people, we were paid for ours to go into the hospital by an ambulance, but and we didn't have a hospital right in our community. We had to go maybe 10, 15 miles into the town, not 60. I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that I think that I've been here at the meetings quite a few times, and I think, if I recollect, I think this has probably been the biggest amount of money that we've had to turn over, that we've had to write off since I've been here. I think most of them have been in the $90,000 bracket. Maybe there've been one over $100,000. And I question, just like everybody else is, I know that, like Sam said, is trying to get the people here in town that are poor, that can't handle this kind of stuff, and we still got to take them to the doctor and to the hospital, whatever it might be. I think that there's something has to be looked at in a different way. I know that I go into town quite a few times during the week, and I'm either getting passed by a Pahrump aid rig, or I'm coming back and I'm getting passed by a Pahrump aid rig going back into town. So I know that it's wear and tear on our vehicles. And again, my consensus is that if we're going to be doing this, we ought to have another ambulance company here that transport them into town. I don't think that we should be transporting people into town. I think that our ambulances, because we are paying for them out of our money, that we should be paying for the ambulances to be here ready to transport to our hospital. And that's the way I look at it, because we're not gaining anything by it, except for every few years we've got to buy a new ambulance because we've ran the other ones into the ground so much. And I know that this is a sore subject for some people about bringing another ambulance company here in town and all that. But, you know, the times are getting that way where something's got to change here, and we're not going to be able to afford to buy a new ambulance every 2 or 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Cox. I'd like to start out by saying that I support Harley and what he's saying. I understand where he's coming from because I've been in business. To start with, I think maybe this has been going on year after year. This is nothing new. Perhaps maybe if you're going to have an ambulance service, you need to have an oversight board and maybe have a private audit done. There's monies here that perhaps maybe cover everything, yet you have a write-off because you're or the ambulance service, I'm sorry, is overcharging people. It's very expensive to take an ambulance, even if it's just over to the hospital, they have their basic rates. And for every person that is charged and pays, that is supposed to cover approximately 7 people that can't afford to pay. That's just common knowledge. That's the way they do. The insurance companies are basically covering for the indigent people. So is this really a loss? Does this really do we have to lose more money trying to collect it? Or does an audit need to be done and an oversight committee set together to try to take a good look at this? Because maybe the town should not be in the ambulance business. Maybe there should be some competition out there. I know this was a big problem in Clark County for a long time, and finally they opened it up so there was not a monopoly any longer, so people could afford to have an ambulance service. Because as long as you have a monopoly, which is basically what you have here, you're going to have people being overcharged. I know you as a board are not really into the budgetary end of it, but maybe you should become into the budgetary end of it. Maybe you should take 2 or 3 of your members, well, don't want to get a quorum here, but at least 2 of your members and a couple of outside people and staff and really take a look at this. It may pay and it may be in the best interest of the citizens for you to have an outside ambulance service come in. We have another problem too. We have overload. You know, there's times, I always see 2 ambulances going to everything. That's running up a lot of gas, it's running up a lot of wages. You never see just 1 ambulance go out. It's always 2 ambulances or an ambulance and a fire truck. I think you could cut corners a little bit to save some money in that instance. If you have 1 person that's ill, you don't need 2 ambulances just in case one breaks down on the way. The town's not that big and that really doesn't make sense. But that's the explanation I've gotten for seeing these people run back and forth all the time. They tank these ambulances everywhere. Granted, they're on duty, but do they have to tank them to go to the grocery store, to go to the gas station, to go to the convenience market? Come on, guys. And then we have the prison also. If they get called up to the prison, we're out of people. We need more than 1 ambulance service. And I think you need to get out of the ambulance business because you're not doing too well here. Thank you.
All right, see nobody else getting up for public comment. We do have a motion on the table to approve the approval of transfer ambulance fund delinquent accounts for October through December 2010 for further collection and related accounting adjustments. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 13, consent agenda items. We have pulled C and D off to be on the regular agenda for discussion. So I will entertain a motion for A and B.
I so move.
I second.
I third it.
Is there any discussion about the town voucher, Dr. Waters? Any discussion about the town vouchers in the minutes for January 11? Any public discussion? Seeing none, let's see. I need to vote on this. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items A and B signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to item C, the approval to accept Mr. Bobby Hartman to the Pahrump Incorporation Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The reason why
Nope. It was removed from the consent agenda.
No, I asked for them to be removed from the consent agenda so we can have discussion on them.
Okay.
The reason why I asked for this item to be removed, I thought I'd like to talk a little bit about his resume here. Mr. Hartman has a pretty impressive resume. We're always talking about how we have a lot of qualified people in our community, and it'd be nice for them to come forward. I want to like to read something that he said. I thought that when I retired, I would not miss being involved in the public sector, but I have found that I do miss the involvement. I would like to be able to put some of the training and experience that I have acquired over the past 45 years to help the Incorporation Advisory Board in the completion of the assigned task. I thought that was really great, and I'd like a lot more people to start feeling like this. We have many retired people in our community who have a lot more still to give, and my hat's off to this gentleman that still wants to keep giving, and I hope a lot more people will come forward and help this town move forward. So I just wanted to mention that, so that's why I wanted to do that. So I make a motion to accept Mr. Hartman on the Incorporation Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion by the board? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The second item that you asked to have brought forward was the approval to accept the resignations of Don Russ, Darce Wilson, Julie Hargis, and Carl Moore from the Incorporation Advisory Board.
Yes, the reason why I asked for this item to be removed from the consent agenda was at our last meeting, Mrs. Endersby was going to contact the board members that wanted to resign, and I just wanted to make it clear, I don't see all the names there, so perhaps you can tell us the ones that, I assume you talked to all of them, and these names, these people did not want to reconsider, so I'm pretty disappointed, but I thought you could tell us of the people or person that did want to stay on their board.
Yes, there are two that have stayed on. Mr. Bobeck, Jeff Bobeck is staying on, and I've lost his name and I didn't write it down.
Mark Kimball.
Mark Kimball is staying on, and the other...
Janice Painter.
Janice Painter, but there's another gentleman, so
Pat
there's
Kirby.
4.
Pat.
Who is it?
Pat Kirby.
Pat Kirby, yes. So that is who will remain on the board. The others did really have personal reasons for resigning. They felt that they had served, and which they did do. They've worked very hard, served well on the advisory board. So I think we do owe them a thank you and a great deal of appreciation for all the work they did.
Certainly, and I'd also like to thank the people that reconsidered and stayed on with it. So with that, I'll make a motion to accept item D, the resignation of the people mentioned.
You're calling me.
Mr. Don Rust, Mr. R. Darcy Wilson, Ms. Julie Hargis, and Mr. Carl Moore. Not my phone.
He just called me.
Can we have that read again? Can we have that motion again?
Certainly. I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignations of Mr. Don Rust, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Hargis, and Mr. Moore from the Pahrump Incorporation.
Go take the call.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make a comment before we make the motion, if that's possible.
Comment now.
I'll second it, and then I'll make my comment.
I have a second, but go ahead and make a comment.
Yes. I think there was a misunderstanding with some of the people who resigned, thinking that when we said we wanted to look at the names and talk to the people who were on the board, because we want a professional advisory board to advise the town board.
It's important.
And just from information I've received, it sounds like they think that we're looking for incorporation. We're either for incorporation or we're against incorporation. And I just wanted to make it clear that what we really want is information, because the Incorporation Advisory Board has to give us information so we can act in a prudent manner. And that's why we need the Incorporation Advisory Board. And I think it was just a misunderstanding, but it was stated that it looked like we were either pushing incorporation or trying to stop incorporation. And that's not the issue at all. We need an advisory board, and that was the key.
Thank you. Any further comment from the board? Any public comment?
Yes. Yes, Bob Rubing again. Dr. Waters, I hear what you're saying, but like I said last meeting, is that when you have individuals that take off and go up to areas to try to get incorporation put on the ballot, and you have an ex-town member that is still a town board member that tries to get it on, and none of these people were even recognized or even asked to go up with them, it sort of gives you the feeling that they really don't want me. I'm nothing important to them. I haven't studied this thing for maybe 2 or 3 years like I know Darth did, because he was on it when I was first started on the thing, on the board here, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was. And so I think that if you keep going the way they are, with, like I said, with your volunteers, you're going to lose your people if you don't treat them like you're interested in what they're trying to tell them. And that's exactly what it is. You know, I can go back to other things that have happened, and in a case where people have been assigned committees, have been put on boards to do certain things, to research different things, and they get done with it, and the next thing you know, the town board's paying $25,000 or $30,000 to go out there and get somebody's another opinion. You know, and like you said, there's enough people here in this town, and like Harley said, there's enough people in this town that have got a lot of expertise and probably know a lot of stuff on how to do it. And until you start treating your people with the respect as a volunteer, you're going to have the same problem down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to that?
Yes.
May I respond? Just like to say that I think you will see that we are using the volunteers because we do recognize that expertise. I just wanted to go ahead and say that. And all the people on the advisory board, we're trying to make sure that they get the training that's required so that they're advising us so that we can make those prudent decisions. And thanks for your comments.
I'm intimidated being next to Mr. Stevens, but I'll go ahead anyway. I just wanted to ask if Mr. Culkin would amend his motion to include a letter or certificate of appreciation to these board members that are resigning for having served with the town board and their efforts to assist. For as long as I've been here, and I served on an economic development advisory board, when they were done with you, they just issued you, helped you out the door and never said a word. And I think anytime somebody comes to volunteer to work for you, to help you do your jobs better, you ought to at least give them a notice of appreciation. Thank you.
Actually, we don't even have to amend the motion. We can just direct staff.
Yeah, and we've done that in the past.
Mr. Stevens.
Dave Stevens again. We had a good advisory board here. These people are all right. I got nothing against them, but they're not like the old advisory board we used to have here. They were honest. They were honest, fairly honest. I could name them. I won't name them here, but I can name every one of them. And I liked every one of them. I like the ones there now, but I don't agree with them. I've been over to all them meetings. They don't accomplish anything. The last meeting I went to, they were fairly honest. They said it would cost more money. That's what I've been driving about all the time. The money's going to cost me. Like I've told many people, I'm a cheap one. I don't believe in spending money. I hate to spend money. Although I had to spend a small fortune to get the weeds out of my yard.
Me too.
Tons of them. And I was mad. In the middle of the night, I was going to go home, back up to Washington. She had a hold of me. That's why I grew these whiskers, to make her mad. But anyway, if they're honest with the people, I keep preaching that these people are not honest, all of them. I can name them. I won't hear. They'll have to send me a piece of paper or something. They're really not honest. That's the truth. I'm honest. When I say something, I'd like to see somebody tell me that I'm telling a lie. I would tell them off if I could be corrected now. Now, as far as the advisory board, They spent $38,000 on that thing. They made a much better presentation, the advisory board I'm talking to a couple, 3 years ago around here, and then some. They made a good, same thing. I think that guy copied that. But theirs was much better than the one we paid $38,000. Kohlberger snuck down there and paid the other $19,000, didn't want anybody to know about it. That's exactly what happened. I don't know. I thought he threw that pencil away. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, I hope these people are honest there. I'm not against incorporation, because I'll probably just move out of town if it costs me too much money. I want to get back home anyway. I can't talk her into it. Oh, I still got 22 minutes left. You're going to run me out of here. Anyway, Kohlberger, he keeps spending his money and keeps spending it and spending it. I don't know, there must be a money tree out there or something where they're picking that money off of.
Dave, all we're talking about is just accepting their resignations.
Oh, okay, sorry about that, Mike. I'm sorry about that, I won't say that no more. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think I need to bring a little levity to this. When I was in high school, I seen this movie on TV, and I always wanted to see it again, and I never did, and I finally tracked it down, and it's called It Grows on Trees, a 1952 movie. And these people actually had money trees in the backyard. It's a really funny movie. Get a hold of that thing.
I remember that movie.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the resignations of Don Rust, Doris Wilson, Julie Hargis, and Carl Moore from the Incorporation Advisory Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 14, future meetings, workshops, dates, times, and location. Anything from the board? Wow. Anything from staff? Anything from the public? Moving right along, that brings us to item 15, public comment.
Mr. Chairman, there's something wrong. We're getting done too early.
We're not done.
Mr. Chairman, I think we omitted on the agenda, Mr. Kohlberger, the approval of the minutes.
That was
I'm
consent
sorry.
agenda.
No. That was under the consent agenda? I'm sorry.
That was consent A and B, ma'am.
Who's first?
I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Butch Harper, resident. I've lived here 17 years. I've been to many board meetings. And I've heard different comments from different people, and everybody thinks differently. Well, my father died when I was 12 years old. Before he died, he told me, he said, young man, he said, one of these days you're going to sit back and you're going to think who you really are. Well, 36 years old is when I sat down and I thought what I was all about. And the more I thought, the uglier the picture got. Wasn't a very, very pretty picture of myself. So I sort of made it a point, instead of taking from people, which I did many, many times, I want to give back. And I just, I cut things out of the newspaper, and I got a little quote here. It's a quote of the week out of our own Pahrump Valley Times. We rarely think people have good sense unless they agree with us. I think that's a very good quote. Because of the comments I hear every time, you know, it varies. I mean, it's from here to here. And all I want to say is, just because the town board does not think the same way I do, and then maybe they don't. But I would just like to ask the town, everybody that come to these meetings from now on, this board's only been together for what? This is the fourth, fifth meeting? Give them a chance. Each one of them has their own point of view. But they got to follow that little line that we put them on. They either go off it or they don't. But please, just give the board a chance.
They're not going to correct everything in a month, 2 months, even 6 months. It might take a year. But, you know, we'll come to that stream when we got to cross it. And then maybe I'll say something politically, and I'm not a politician. I want to stay out of it. Let's just help each other and give the board a chance to put things together and get together, and maybe they can come up with a solution that you want. But then again, maybe they won't, because there'll always be a little bit of negativity in every meeting. So all I want to say, thank you, and just ask the people of the town again, give the board a chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Alberti, Pahrump resident, and I wanted to say quickly, when I used to work for a living for someone, I always annually evaluated my value in the marketplace, and I'd shop my job. So I have a prepared statement I'd like to give you tonight. I come before you today to address the topic of the town manager's position. Managing Pahrump is very challenging. We have a history of changing managers annually. In truth, many managers know their term of contract is always in danger due to the very nature of their job. They are expected to do the bidding of the board, and many times it looks as if it is they who are causing the board to do their bidding. To my knowledge, in the last 12 years, only one manager has lasted 4.5 years, and the current manager, I believe, is 2 years. There have been tumultuous times, and for my money, it would be nice to create an environment that puts to rest many of the concerns that have been expressed by us and create a more harmonious atmosphere at the town gatherings. At a previous meeting, I understand the board opted to not renew the contract with the town manager as it exists. There was then discussion about extending the contract for 90 days while an evaluation was made. Now we see a small grouping of letters in support of the current manager, a few from the same family. Nice, but not the way a board should make its decisions. The manager's contract expires June 30th, 2011. That makes the time for discussion in excess of 120 days to decide what to do. In reality, go back 30 days for the contract to be signed, 60 days to process individuals, and 30 days to scout the terrain for putting a plan into action. I hereby want to charge you all as representatives of all of us in Pahrump that it is in order for you to proceed with a comparison of candidates for the town manager position, including but not limited to the current town manager and others who may come forward with an interest in managing the people's affairs, including our monies and our destiny. I suggest that input from your constituents be publicly solicited as to what we, who you were elected to serve, would desire to have in the manager. Determine what you as a board believe this community needs and search for the individual that best fits that platform. That includes creating a wants and needs list that a prospective manager should meet. I suggest that this is a confidential list not shared with anyone outside the board until the decision is made. No sense in having them tell you what you want to hear. Let them tell you what you need to hear. Inviting applications and perhaps even asking a small group of citizens to observe the interviews and provide feedback to you as to what they see. I know when I go to the doctor or to my lawyer or a building contractor, I always bring someone additional to be sure I get the results I want. It is my sincere hope that those of you who run on the perception of honesty and willingness to look at all sides of an issue will consider this approach or something akin to it, so we can all pay more attention to our own needs while you attend to providing basics that will make this a great place for us to live. Thank you. And I'd like to have this submitted into the minutes.
Mr. Alberti, if you have a list of prerequisites that you'd like to see on a contract, please feel free to email them to me or any board member.
Actually, my suggestion is that I think not only should you be looking at Mr. Kohlberger's contract, but at the same time, you should find out what else is available to you as additional people that might be willing to serve. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Louis DeCanio. I'm a resident of Pahrump for approximately 8 years. Earlier tonight, you heard me ask one of our commissioners concerning Blagg Road and stuff. And as a citizen, I've talked to the commissioners on numerous occasions, and trying to get a straight answer out of a commissioner is like trying to pull a pork chop out of a lion's mouth, okay? Now, we haven't got nothing accomplished on Blagg Road. We've got no information on. All I'm asking is the town board, even though I know it's out of your jurisdiction and stuff, you have a little bit more authority than the Louis DeCanios and the regular citizens of Pahrump. You all live in Pahrump. Can you get some information for us? Give us an update. Let us know what's going on. Now, like I said earlier tonight, you heard exactly what I asked Lorenda Wichman, our commissioner, and you heard the answer. And that's the same answers that we always get from the commissioners. You, as the town board, have a little bit more pull, a little bit more clout, and maybe you'll be able to pull that pork chop out of the lion's mouth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Mr.
DeCanter, give me your email address if you would, and again, I will make another phone call to the county tomorrow, and if I hear of anything, I'll be glad to update everybody. Is that okay with you guys?
Absolutely perfect.
Write it down right there, sir.
Richard Goldstein, Pahrump resident. Mr. Irving asked a question a minute ago. The average ambulance bill in the city of Pahrump, or town of Pahrump, is $885. Roughly the same type of bill in Las Vegas, where it's a private ambulance company, is about $100 less. Last week, we had a really heated discussion over the contract of Mr. Coburg, I'm sorry. And Mr. Darby tried his darndest to make it even. It worked out pretty good. This week in our backup, we had some 13 letters in here in support of Mr. Coburg. Very nice. Not one letter in opposition. Are you trying to tell me that nobody wrote a letter in opposition of his employment?
I didn't get one.
I mean, something's a little wrong here, please. Thank you.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, Sam Jones, Pahrump resident. You know, I realize this board is new. You're 3 of the 5 of yous are new, and all the negativity in this town's got to stop. But there's a thing called common sense. And you know, what happened earlier at the beginning of this meeting, Mr. Chairman, you violated NRS 241.036 when you took it upon yourself to take off items 9, 10, and 11, which are action items. And I'll refer to, again, the Nevada Open Meeting Law Manual. You folks need to read this because I personally handed out over a dozen open meeting law complaint violations to the people that got up and left this building because of this. So all I'm saying to you is you need to study what you're doing. You need to start listening to the people, to the public. A couple of yous up there have already done an about face, just from the time we elected you to this meeting. You've done an about face. And I shoot straight from the hip every time. I don't pull no punches. I'll look you in the eye and tell you, I don't pull no punches. I speak the truth, and the truth will set you free, number one. So all I'm saying is, this is not Mike Darby's board. This is the Robert's Rules of Order board. That's the rules you're supposed to follow. And everybody set up there took an oath. Did you or did you not? Take an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Nevada. All I ask you is you followed those oaths that you took. And if you need them, I'll hand you a book of the Constitution, or someone else will, to refresh your memories. So all I'm asking you is, let's start this year out right and start using some common sense, which none of the previous boards have used is any common sense. And it doesn't take much common sense. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Stevens again.
Turn your mic on, please.
Dave Stevens again. It hurts me to come in here and keep you people's time up and everything, but I did read the paper and I come up with something, Mr. Waters over there. He went up there and kowtowed to the county, talked to the county, and he said that we didn't say we wanted this building. We did want this building. I got it right here, and I got it right in the agenda here. What is it you don't want to build here? I got it right here. Got it. Waters clarified 5-0 vote by Pahrump Town Board didn't involve taking over Cavada I. We did. I'm all ready to saw a hole through there and put a coffee shop in there or something. I want this building. This is ours. I feel good here. My back quit hurting. They got a better microphone here. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Was it a mistake you said that or what? I think I deserve an answer as a taxpayer.
May I?
You can't answer it?
Mr. Waters.
You can't answer it.
Yes. Mr. Stevens, what I said in that was we modified the motion. It wasn't just to take over the Calvada I. It was looking at what we could do for our community center. And we modified the motion to say that.
I didn't.
The board did.
I don't remember that.
The board did.
Well, then I'm sorry. I didn't hear it.
Okay, well, that's why I said it that way. I believe in honesty too, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, it should have been more clarified, I'll tell you that much. I wasn't even going to listen here, except I had to come back and get my coat. And this thing, they said the last town manager was fired. He was not fired. He resigned. He was an honorable man. Anybody at that meeting will say the same thing. Dave Richards. They got another lady come up here and said there's nobody could handle a job. I can see three people up there could handle it. Miss Sanders, he could handle it. Mike could handle it. And Harley could handle that town manager's job. Any kid right out of high school could. This whole thing is, I don't know what you cut us out from talking about that. I had some strong stuff I was going to say here tonight, but I got cut out of it. Mrs. Anderson, you got your foot on the clock again there. You do look much better when you smile. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps Mr. Kohlbarger could invite Mr. Stevens to spend a day with him, and he'll find out it's not such a simple job.
Do what? Say what?
I was saying that perhaps Mr. Kohlbarger could invite you to spend a day with him, and you'll see that it's not such a simple job.
That'd be a piece of cake. I just love that.
I don't think so.
You look pretty grumpy there, Dave.
Where I got me a club out in my car.
Don Cox. These letters that's in the backup here, I take that as same as the county getting 39 signatures when we got 1,200 to have him removed. So these letters you have here means nothing to those 1,200 signatures. So consider those 1,200. You guys have got them. Why weren't they in the backup as well as these letters? What's going on here? And there's some stuff sitting there about me and my wife that was totally uncalled for. My motorhome was worth a lot more than a lot of these houses in this town. And I got news for that lady that wrote that letter. She don't know what she's talking about. But those there 1,200 signatures should have been in this backup, just like these here letters that was in here. There's a lot more signatures than there are letters. And they won't get that many letters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, George Gingell. You know, you people ought to think about writing a contract and giving it to whatever town manager you're going to hire or whatever, because why should you let them write their own contract and you people are, and us are paying whatever they want, they're going to get. And you just, okay, we'll just take and pass it. Never mind how much it's going to cost. But I think you ought to write a contract. Here's the contract. Do you want to work for us? This is the way you're going to do it. If you don't, hit the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. All I want to do is one thing here tonight is I'd like to pre-warn the town board, and I think that what it is it's an inattentive to detail. And where I'll put this at is on 2 episodes that have happened here in the last couple of months. And one of them just happened this week. You know, I know Dr. Waters and me both spent a lot of time in the military, and we know in different things and how we protect our bosses. A lot of times our bosses would jump on us or want us to do something, and we'd have to go out and basically protect them. Well, I don't feel Mr. Kohlbarger's doing that. And what do I mean by that? Well, if the Grofonics deal when it came up and they got the deed for that piece of property out there on Kellogg, if he'd have noticed on there that these things said for public use only, there would have been no reason to vote on it. But he did not give him the information that that's what it said, and did not go to this county and ask them what was meant by this. So consequently, now we're stuck with the possibility of a lawsuit from Grofonics. And I take an episode that happened here just this last week. Mr. Calkin went and put on the agenda that he wanted to make up a town ordinance that there could not be any prisoners being used in jail here in town. If Mr. Kohlbarger had been on the ball, he would have went and called the sheriff up and said, do you see a problem with this? But no, it went on the doggone agenda to make the town board look like a bunch of fools. Because that's exactly what he evidently wants to indicate, is to make you look like a bunch of fools and make him look good. And he did not go and ask, he should have called the sheriff up and said, I seen the report the sheriff sent back down because it's in the backup. But the thing about it is that if this continues to go this way, every one of you is going to get stung sometime or another because he didn't do his job the right way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harold Grimeau, town resident. I'm not fond of them letters in the back of that thing either. They didn't have enough guts to put that stuff in there. You know, we went over the agenda how long, and then he put stuff in there having these people call me a stupid idiot, a retiree that don't pay taxes, and all this other crap. I mean, where do they get off that? You read them letters, and they look like form letters to me, like somebody else said, all in the family. If I went out and spent as much time as him and his little Mexican compadre did, getting these things signed and filled out, I could give you 50 of these.
Is it appropriate, Mr. Darby?
Point of order, yes.
No more inappropriate than what you put in here.
Darby.
Okay?
Please, can we not address individuals? Please, if there's a concern you have about a particular issue, then I would ask the chairman to please keep the subject on the issue and not on our personnel. Thank you.
All right, turn the clock back. My turn now. Okay? Why was that allowed to be put in there? Who runs this town anyway?
Anything is allowed to be put in the agenda. Now, if you're going to continue talking about the letters, I'm going to have to ask you to step down.
If I write one, will it be put in? That's all I want to know.
If you write it to me.
It's a bunch of monkey business.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Calkin.
There's people on both sides of this issue with Mr. Kohlbarger, obviously, but, you know, just so the public knows, like, my email's available, and I want to tell the public that I haven't gotten one letter of complaint on my email that you can send direct to me about Mr. Kohlbarger. Now, that can't be rigged. So the point is that the other side apparently is only being vocal here, is my point, and not doing anything else. I don't believe there's any impropriety here. If you submit a letter and you want it in the backup, it'll be there.
Just like Vicki said,
I have been soliciting.
You didn't get called on, did you?
I've been
just
soliciting.
Like she said a couple of years ago in a meeting, there was about 15 CCSC people there. Well, you're not the backup. You're not the vote. All them thousands of people out there in their houses watching TV, they all say yes. So you're outvoted. I mean, that's nonsense. If they want to vote, let them come out and vote. If they want to say something, let them come out and say something. Half these people, people write stuff and say stuff, and they don't have a backup for it. They don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, it's all BS, and I still got 20 seconds on there.
Next.
May I say something before? May I say something, please?
You've already got up and spoke once.
This is an apology.
You can have my 20 seconds.
It's just an apology. I was just approached by the sheriff, and I was made a mistake, and I thought that Mr. Kobarger hadn't contacted him in regards to the deal that Mr. Calkin had put on the agenda tonight. So, Mr. Kobarger, I apologize to you.
Are we ready? Donna Cox. I have some things I wanted to bring to light. There are a few different items. I don't know if this one had been mentioned earlier or not, but there's going to be a sheriff and a DA's forum over here on Sunday at the Calvada I. I would like to see everybody possible that could to show up for that. It's Mr. DeMayo, of course, and Brian Coons are going to hold a forum from 1 to 3 on Sunday here at the Calvada I. And it's also come to my attention that there's some really bad lighting in this parking lot, and if we're going to continue to use this building for the liability of the town and the county, that something drastically needs to be done quick with this lighting. I know one lady that stumbled and fell out here, and thank goodness she's not the suing kind. But yes, it's very dark out there. You could even be assaulted, and there has been a lot of people appearing at these meetings, so they've been filling the parking lot up pretty well.
Yeah. May I address that briefly? It has been mentioned to Mr. Kobarger, and he has called the county on this. So it's in the county's court now.
Okay. As long as you've been notified, though, that makes you somewhat liable. So please take care of it, since it's your idea for us to be here.
Not mine.
And also, this agenda that came out over the internet, the backup was missing, and that was brought to a lady's attention today by Kim Clendenin when she went to pick up the backup, because we were trying to pull it off the internet over the weekend, and we could only get the agenda, not the backup. And her attitude was, and she said to Kim, well, we don't really have to supply that backup anyway. Well, I don't think that's a very good thing to say to the general public, because I believe under the NRS you do have to supply the backup. Also, I would like to address the issue of the letters just a little bit that were in the back of the agenda. I believe fully in freedom of speech. I may be president of CCSC, but I'm only a figurehead. I'm only there to help run the meetings. Everybody does not feel the same as I do. God only knows I support incorporation. I've always supported it, and I've tried very hard to convince the people that come to my meetings to support it. And I think the majority of the people that wrote these letters in favor of Mr. Kohlberger did so because they all appear to be in favor of incorporation, and they think somehow he's going to get this town incorporated, which at the rate he's going, I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to happen. And I would even have to take a real close second look at it right now as far as the figures go. But they're all entitled to their own opinion. But I would like to say that this is pitting the police department against people. The 3 of those letters in there are written by police officers, maybe even more that I know of, and another one has written a letter to the editor, and I just need a couple more seconds. You know, and then we've got him calling the sheriff a white-haired gossip king. This needs.
Ms. Cox, we didn't spend the time to talk about the 1,200 signatures.
Stop. This needs to stop.
Yeah, it needs to stop.
He needs to quit pitting people against people.
Cox,
this is why he needs to leave. Okay?
Your time is up.
No, maybe yours is. Quit pitting people against people.
That's what you do.
No, it's not. I'm not sitting in his position.
Excuse me.
You're not paying my wages. We're
Excuse
paying
me.
his wages. Excuse you.
No complaints can be filed.
Hi, my name is Sandra Darby. I'm going to talk about the letters too, whether you like it or not. I was standing there the day that Bill Kohlbarger handed you 1,200, all those pages with the 1,200 signatures, and I don't want to offend anybody or not, However, I think had those letters, which you were also given a copy of, were included in the backup, I think those signatures should have also been included in the backup. It would have only been fair. You tried to be fair at the last town board meeting. It should have been fair in the backup, Mike. Fair is fair. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Koenig, Koenig. I'm a resident of Pahrump. I just have one thing off to change, not to change the subject, but I will change the subject. How's that? I call these leftovers. There are two leftovers I like to address. One is the obnoxious countdown clock, and the other is we happen to be in public comment right now. Before the old town board, public comment used to be at the top. At least one of you, I think, up there tried to get it moved back to the top, and that didn't succeed. So I'd just like to remind you where it used to be, and I won't talk about it again, ever. But it would be nice to put it back where it used to be before someone on the old board put it at the bottom because they didn't want to hear the people talk. Thank you.
Phil Huff, Pahrump citizen. Andy and Harley and another gentleman said something earlier about seeking a replacement for Mr. Kobarger with the thought that it would be a retired professional perhaps, and I think that it's a very well-founded idea, so you might put that in your ideas to follow. I'd like to also say something more. I believe that the town manager's job, in most cases a mayor or that kind of a person serving in that position, has the same kind of obligation that a corporate VP would have, or even a CEO, to appoint people to different positions that they feel are capable of doing those jobs, and then overseeing those jobs. They're become overseers. That's what a manager is, the definition of the word manager. And we need someone perhaps that has that kind of a background, a retired person. How about somebody that lives in Pahrump? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have someone working for the citizens of Pahrump that lived here? Boy, that would be smashing. Someone that had some idea of what's happened in this town the last 10, 15 years. We can't go too much further back because we didn't have that population. But I would suggest you might find someone that maybe is a resident. Maybe you could make it somewhat of a condition. And I think you should make it a condition that it was someone that was not fired from their last job as a town manager. We've gone through 2 of those. It doesn't work. Okay, the last thing I like to say about Groponics. We got a report from Mr. Kobarger tonight on Groponics. It was word for word identical as the last town board meeting. Meaningless in its entirety. Mr. Koshani is doing his due diligence, and he uses the word implied deed restriction. There's nothing implied whatsoever. It says in plain English that it's for public use only, and the word is forever. You can't go to the commissioners and say to them, change it. How are they going to change F-O-R-E-V-E-R? Forever is forever, and that's it. They already have their opinion from the district attorney for the county. They're not going to say we have to put this out for an opinion from our legal people because they already have the opinion. And I don't think that they should even give Kashani an audience because what he's requiring is impossible. And what they're doing in the meantime is tying up the Kellogg property so it can't develop for a fairground, which we need more desperately than 7 employees growing. Who knows what they're going to grow, but it ain't going to be strawberries.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to the town board members' comment.
I was going to refrain from saying anything tonight.
Please state your name.
Robert Smith. I was going to refrain from saying anything tonight, but any person that is given a position like Mr. Kohlberger has, or anybody else in this town that is given a position comparable to his, should have a complete, total, professional background check by the FBI before they're hired. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. That closes public comment. Item 16, town board member comment. Anything from the board? Mr. Waters.
Yes, Ms. Alberti said a couple of things that I really appreciate, and so did so many others. But one of the things that I'd like to repeat, and I've said it before, so I'd like to repeat it, and that's if you have some comments, concerns, send emails. Email is probably the best way to reach all 5 board members. And I say again, send it to all 5 of us. If you want to only send it to 1 or 2, that's okay. But you can send it to all 5 just as easily. There was talk about some of the letters that were there. Now, I get pros and cons on almost every event and everything that's on the agenda. And that's good, because I need that information from all of you. But I don't get as much as I think I should, because a lot of comments come out here, and I know I send out a lot of information to some of the people in the audience, but I don't get responses. And I'd like to know, what do you really think? I'm being open and honest when I send something out to you. Anything that you give me, I research. I want to deal in facts. I don't want to deal in innuendos or rumors. I want to deal in facts. So I do the research, and I'll send that back to you, exactly what I find. If I find, and if you find there's something wrong with the information I have, let me know. I can learn. That's what I'm here for. And I'm here to support you. But I can't do it in the dark. I can't do it if I don't get the information from you. You've got our email addresses. They're usually on the agendas. You can find them on the web. Our email addresses and phone numbers are there. So please stay in touch with us. We're your town board. We're not our town board. We're your town board. We want to support you. Thank you.
Ms. Henderson.
Yes, and there's a couple of things that we talked about on the that was on the agenda. One is the board policies and procedures. I appreciate the input and the work that everyone has done on that document. It is so important that we have a real clear picture of what's expected from all of us. And the hope is that that's a working document in process. Certainly any input that anybody has on that document needs to come forward, but it is one that would help anybody that comes to our meetings know what our policies and procedures are, how we conduct our meetings, what the expectation is, and would then give us all a framework for moving forward on making decisions and action. The other is the recognition of volunteers. I certainly see that our volunteers in our community, because I have been one, I am one, I have worked hard as a volunteer, and I do agree that we need to recognize and appreciate our volunteers a lot more than we do. We need to also work with our volunteers. That's not only the board, but the citizens. When you have comments and concerns and issues, and they can be addressed at an advisory board meeting, that is a great place to go and have dialogue about that issue. Really get into how you feel about it, bring some ideas to that advisory board so they can bring it to the board. It makes action move quicker when we are here because it's already been deliberated somewhere else, whether it's an organization you belong to or an advisory board. The other is that there is another document, a Pahrump Town Board policy, that was revised in 2008, and it does require an update, a revision, at least every 2 years. I will be bringing that forward for consideration in the future. So if you have ever looked at that document, I think it is on the website, but it's the Pahrump Town Board Policy dated 2009, and it will help us get more clarity on what it is that our policies, because I heard some discussion here about what your policy is, how you should operate, and great recommendations, but that is a place where we can really put it into writing so we all understand it. Thank you.
Any further comments? Mr. Culkin.
Mr. Chairman, well, tonight I had 3 items on the agenda. 2 of them were about, more or less, I would have liked to have had a little public discussion on them and a little clarification. One of them I felt was very important, and that was number 9 about housing criminals in our community. Because I'm very saddened by the direction this community is taking, and I'm saddened that we don't have enough leadership to stand up to where we're going, because it's not a good place. I wanted to compromise tonight. I offered, okay, forgo 2 of them, but let's have this here, the 3rd item, so that we can talk about it a little bit. But because apparently there's something going around saying that we don't have the jurisdiction to tell the county that they can't do something, that we just cower down. I just don't understand that. So basically the message tonight was that if the county wants to do something, they don't have to follow any laws. But we, the citizens, do. Let's look at the facts. The facts are that this community now has what's supposed to be a detention center. How did it get here? Well, it got here real simple. There was a law that said that you could not have one of these facilities within 9.5 miles of a house, a residence. And the RPC supported that and refused to take that law away. It also refused to take away a zone change. So the county commissioners go, well, we're going to micromanage. We don't care what you want. You're getting to prison, whether you like it or not. So they changed the zone and they removed the 9.5 mile clause. Well, has this ever happened to any of you? So they changed the law, they put something you want there and put one of the laws back. Anybody else get preferential treatment like that? I'm not aware of it. Be aware that Carson City has a 200-bed jail. And Carson City's population is somewhere between 2 and 3 times as many people we have. I have no idea how many people we've lost. We don't need a 300-bed jail, and I don't know what it's costing. What is it, $25 million putting us in debt? You had no say-so in those bonds. When we had a library, there was a vote about the bonds on the ballot, and the people voted for it, but not this new 300-bed jail. Mr. DeMayo's argument's all about lodging. He has a lot of arguments that, oh, well, by state law, if someone's passing through and says you need to lock my guy up for the night, you have to do it. I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about housing. Housing means that that's their permanent residence. That's where they receive mail. That's where they live now. Well, so let's look at the facts. I don't have enough time to tell you about all the businesses that have been run out of town, but it's a clear pattern that if you want to do something with criminals, that this county that's what they want. They're turning Pahrump into a community that houses criminals, and anybody that says that that doesn't bring a more criminal element to your community is either foolish or stupid or something, because that's what it does do. And in Carson City it does it. Where I got my information is a lifelong friend who works for the courts in Carson. So what I'm saying is true. It brings more crime to Carson City, and it'll bring more crime here. Is that a deterrent to bring in quality businesses to your community? You bet it is. We don't have a lot of power here, and I'm trying to flex our muscles a little bit. We prohibit brothels in our community. Oh, but that's a private business. Apparently we don't have a right to prohibit the county's business. So apparently there's a separate law book or rules or something that I'm not aware of. I sure like to see that book. But if we don't stand up to what's going on here, then we're just going to continue in the road that we're on, which is more foreclosures, less jobs, and so on. This community is being destroyed because we don't have the right leadership. And this, you know, I'm going to be trying a couple more things I don't want to talk about at the moment, that try to get control, but I think the community is going to have to come to the reality that this town must take control of itself. And one of the viable options is incorporation. Like it or not, that's what's going to happen. Now, we're going to be meeting with the county commissioners. Personally, I'm not hopeful that anything's going to come out of it except for a lot of smoke and mirrors and wasting my time. But I'm not going to not participate because I don't mind saying I told you so. I would be elated if I'm proven wrong. but I've been here 17 years and I don't expect it to happen. We need more people to participate and stand up to what's going on here. Or you might as well just open your doors and let the criminals walk in, because that's what's happening. So.
My turn. Okay, I want to start out with my usual apology. This time it was a problem with the backup. I'm going to ask you to bear with us just a little bit longer. We finally have a replacement. We're going to have a new staff member beginning on Wednesday who will be able to do the minutes so we can get them back on time to get the backup on the agenda. Just give her a couple weeks to figure out what the heck she's doing. But that is good news, is we finally able to get a staff member so that the things will get done on time. I want to take the blame for the letters that were in the agenda. Again, because we were short on staff members, it was supposed to have been in the last agenda, and it just didn't get there. But I have repeatedly said, meeting after meeting, not everybody can come to these meetings, and even those of you that do, if you take the time to write me a letter and email, I'll put it in the backup. Pro anything, against anything, and I put every letter that I received in the backup. There's no hanky-panky going on, and I will continue to do that because some people can't come to these meetings. Some people actually are watching them on television now. I hear from them that they watch the meetings on television, and their only way to communicate then would be either by phone or by mail. Moving on, please, by the way, please write me. I will put it in the backup. I want to talk about the parking lot, too. I agree with Ms. Cox. I have complained every single meeting to Mr. Kobarger. He has called the county. Apparently, I'll let him speak on this, but apparently they have no intention of turning the lights on at night. I would ask him to call again, but there's nothing more we can do beyond repeatedly calling. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just invite, because I think Mrs. Cox did make a good point, that the forum that the sheriff and the district attorney is going to be having on Sunday from 1 to 3 here in this office, in this chamber, is the perfect place to talk about the concerns that center around that item number 9. So certainly come and talk to the sheriff and the district attorney if you have any of those concerns.
There are lights out there, but they don't turn them on.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to inform the public that Mr. Kohlbarger, Mrs. Parker, and myself, I would imagine we'd like to attend that meeting, but we'll be up in Reno, where we'll be addressing the legislature
on Monday
at 9 a.m. Monday morning and trying to get the town to be able to take over planning and zoning. I expect that there'll be someone there lobbying for the county to not make that happen, so wish us luck.
Any further comment from the board?
Send us emails to that effect, and we can take them up with us.
Can I make a point of order? There's a ton of people out here that don't have computers and can't do email. You'll have to start accepting phone calls.
Actually, if you'd like for us to take them up with us, if you can get them to the office by Friday, drop them off at the office or mail them to the office, we can take them with us. It doesn't have to be by email, but we just got notified today about this hearing, and so this is a last-minute thing that we're putting together to go. In fact, we don't even have plane reservations or hotels yet, but I am asking for input from you. I would love to take it with me.
Mr. Chairman? If you don't have an email, call me, 727-1525. That's for the benefit of the people out there in TV
Right.
land. And everybody knows I got the phone on 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Feel free to call me. I get unlimited calls. I love to talk.
He does, too. Yeah.
Actually, I'll let you talk about it in your manager's report. Moving on, 17, town manager's report.
Several things. SB 155, which Mr. Calkin just referred to, is on the Government Affairs Committee for the Senate, Monday, 29th, 2011 at 9 a.m. I suggested that Mr. Calkin go up because he was a citizen before he was an elected official, and he came forth and brought that to the town board and got the town board to vote 5-0 to do a bill draft through Senator McGinnis, and it is now Senate Bill 155. I also feel that Mrs. Parker should go because she sat on the RPC for 2.5 years, and she's been part of the process, and today they asked me to go, and I guess does the town board as a whole want me to accompany Mr. Calkin and Mrs. Parker to the legislation?
I think it's important that he go.
I agree.
It's very important that the town manager attend.
Okay.
Yes, I would concur.
Yeah, we're going to drive through the miles of snow to help you people out.
It's supposed to snow on Sunday, too.
Last week, Mr. Darby and I attended the Nevada League of Cities meeting. It was a good flight up and a good flight back.
Not according to Mr. Darby.
We had a lot of bumps, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, and I wish they'd leave these toy planes alone and let us fly in real ones, but it was kind of bumpy. But it was a really good meeting. Mr. Darby enjoyed it. He got to meet a lot of other legislators, city council people, mayors throughout the state of Nevada. We also met with Senator McGinnis in his office for about 5-10 minutes. We went around, we listened to Senator Lee's Senate Government Committee meeting, which is where we'll be at Monday morning. Mr. Darby also got to participate at along with myself, also participated at a reception at the governor's mansion, and we're still talking about the shrimp that was served because they were huge and they were really good.
Your tax dollars.
Yeah. And Mr. Darby is hopefully going to be putting in for the third vice chairman of the Nevada League of Cities come, when's the meeting? Is September or October?
October.
October in Mesquite. He's looking into that. That'd be great representation for the town of Pahrump to have a town board member, the chairman, on the actual board for the Nevada League of Cities. Something that he's encouraged to do, and hopefully he'll do it.
Go for it, Mike.
As you all know, we had a bad fire over the last week, claiming the lives of 4 people. I just want to throw out a thank you to the fire department. I know they did everything in their power to do what they could do to prevent those. We even had a firefighter get injured, basically by diving through a window to try and save one of those children. He got burned underneath the chin. There also was 2 deputies that were taken out for smoke inhalation, and they tried to go into a building without proper equipment, which is what they do because they're that type of individuals. So I just want to thank all the public safety people who were there. I was there shortly thereafter. It was a very bad scene. It was not good, and I'm glad that that our firefighters and our sheriff's department at least came out alive because they do a tough job. Is there any other questions pertaining to the town manager's report that I can answer for the town board?
Yeah, how's your dog?
My dog's out of surgery. He's at home resting comfortably, but my wife couldn't get him out of the car, so he's still in the car. So.
Oh, you need to go home. For those of you out there, he had a dog fight between his dogs, and one of his dogs broke his canine tooth last night, and the tooth kept lacerating his tongue, and so they had to remove the tooth, and that's what the phone call was that he got, was he needs to come home and get the dog out of the car. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Go ahead. Okay. Mr. Colbar, how are we doing with the NDOT thing, with the construction of McDonald's? It's a real nightmare now trying to park over there.
My understanding from NDOT is they're not going to remove those signs. However, the interesting thing is, if you park there for 2 hours or less, you're going to be okay. it's what they're trying to deter is the individuals who keep parking their cars there with for sale signs. They don't want that.
Well, that's why we were talking about when we discussed this item about maybe them just putting a time limit sign. That'd be
And I
fine.
asked him, as directed by this town board, to please consider putting 2-hour signs up there, you know, and you saw the response that I got back in an email dated Friday, February 4th, 2011, which is actually attached to the backup. You know, Nanette apologized for the response she had to give me, but unfortunately they're there for a reason and they're going to stay. We're still going to be making some phone calls on it, trying to work our way up the chain to see what we can do. And maybe when we're in Carson City on Monday, maybe we can stop by and talk to Susan, who's the director of NDOT, and see what she has to say.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Waters.
Yes, Mr. Kohlberger, it's not in your report, but on the lady who was hit with the rock, do you have anything later on her, the latest?
Chief Lewis, do we have anything on that young lady who was hit? No? No, sir, not from the EMS side. I know the sheriff's department they have 3 suspects, as it was in the paper.
Someone over there might know.
Yes, ma'am? Could you come down to the microphone so everybody could hear, please? I'm sorry. I know it's a long walk, but we'd appreciate it.
Yeehaw. She is out of intensive care. Oh, Marie Hibbert. She's out of intensive care. She, right now, is thinking like she's back when she was 8 or 9. She doesn't recognize her mother right now. She said her mother is the lady that brings her good drinks. So she's starting to speak a little bit, but she is breathing on her own at this time.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything further?
Again, I said it again, got some claps, but next time you see one of our firefighters or one of our deputies, tell them thank you, because that week was I don't know if I can use this word, was pure hell to them. Going through what they did and all the incidents that they happened in a short period of time, they've handled it extremely professionally. Well done job. I mean, it's just incredible what they did last week. I'll be quiet.
With that, meeting's adjourned.